We are live.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are resuming our board meeting. And we are on item 7.4, school startup update. Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So schools are up and running. Students and staff are excited to be, I guess, operating in a more conventional way. People are nervous about COVID a little bit, obviously. What I want to focus on specifically, though, is just a little bit of an enrollment on the update, or the enrollment update, and talk to you a little bit about some of the numbers that are before you in the package. Overall, as a division, we're down about 149 students, and that's FTE. The number of bodies that we're down is about 157. When I say we're down, it's from the spring projected enrollments. So if you look at the middle chart, is that brown? Yes, brown chart. That is what was projected in the spring. The top one, the blue, are the actual numbers. So there are some exceptions to the numbers that have gone down, but then those are Notre Dame overall has gone up in enrollment. St. Benedict, Holy Trinity Academy, Mother Duville are the schools that have shown a little bit of an increase in enrollment in certain areas, like the English program, and then the French program has actually gone down at Mother Duville. But overall, why I want to draw this to your attention, trustees, is to remind you that we're funded on a weighted moving average. So we know that what we submitted in the spring is what we're being funded for this year. However, if this enrollment does not change, we will be impacted to about $1.5 million less next year, which is huge. And then the year after, 50% of that, so 750,000. And then the third year goes to 25%. So we know that the enrollments change day by day. We get an update weekly on Fridays. This was last Friday's numbers. But I mention it because it will have implications for finance committee as well as for our schools if the enrollment doesn't go up. If you look at the top right, you see a budget variance by grade. You can see that it's scattered across the grades. So you can see in kindergarten, we have 16 less than what we budgeted. So it's not like, all of a sudden we don't have kindergarten students. You can see there's 16 less than what we budgeted, but in every grade except for, is it grade 4? Grade 4 is up 2 students in the division. Every other grade is down. So it's very concerning. I guess I'll just leave it at, if you want specific information about a community that's down, I had asked Lori and Tara to phone each of those principals. We have that information. We'd be more than willing to share with you here. There's some local context to some of it because some of the numbers are down quite a bit in various schools. So I'll just turn it back to you if you want to know about a certain community or school, and I'll let Tara and Lori speak to those specifics. Otherwise, I'll entertain any other questions about the enrollment.
Trustee Silva?
Yes, so do you think, Charlie, this is due mainly to COVID?
Some of it maybe, but not all of it. So for example, there's in some communities, new schools have opened. And that has a factor. I would have said if kindergarten numbers were just all by themselves really low, then I would say yes, absolutely.
What about the decision to not provide online learning? Are those the families that aren't with us, or
some
that been looked at?
Some like it, and I don't want to, maybe I'll get Tara to speak about St. Anthony because they're down quite a bit, but that was one of the comments from them. Tara, do you have anything?
Well, so when the numbers for the projections were handed in, the administration from St. Anthony's School did call parents who had decided to go online and At that time, projecting with COVID, they thought they would, but as the time came, they chose not to in some of the cases. So of course, parents were deciding what they were doing in December of last year. It was a tough decision where our projections went through. But at St. Anthony, while I was there, they're getting on average 1 or 2 inquiries to come into the school. So as Charlie mentioned, it changes day to day, but they're getting the influx in, and the community as well have people that are leaving and going out as well. So there's that difference. I don't think you could say that it's because online wasn't provided would be the whole blanket
Yeah,
reason for that. If there's a couple of elements.
There were a few families at St. Andre that had indicated that they wanted online, so they kept their children home from school.
There's some strange things like at St. Augustine, for example, we lost kids to Pinoca Composite because they wanted to play football. And last year they stayed with us because there was no football team. You know, this year they're playing football again, so they made the transition in grade 11 where normally they might go in grade 10. So it's just some anomalies, but I think we have a pretty good handle on some of that. So we'll monitor it as the year goes on.
Trustee Evans?
Like it has been, there was a welcome group of students that decided to leave grade 9, right, to go into the high school grade 9, right? So it was a friendship team, and it was just a group of, including our own Catholic families that just here. So,
And speaking to administration, they thought that was just a grouping,
Yeah.
like it was just this kind of, this level of students. They said that this year's grade 9s, they don't, grade 8s, they don't expect that exodus in grade 9. It's just depending on the kids and then, I guess, the climate.
as it was a group of friends that just would listen to it. That's it.
Trustee
I'm just curious about Father Lacombe, if we lost any because of the ongoing construction and concern over that. Or are they about average?
They're both, well, they did lose some students as well, but generally quite a few, large portions of kindergarten in that community. So there's that. I know at St. Anthony regarding kindergarten, they felt that some people are hearing that maybe kindergarten is that optional, hold off and wait. And so we see that at Father Lacombe as well. So there could be that for Father Lacombe.
So you don't think it's because of the ongoing construction?
I don't believe it is. It isn't a huge impact number there. It's not that there, and it's smattered throughout just a little bit, other than the kindergarten.
Yeah, it is, sorry, go ahead, Trustee Cyril.
Do you think the residential school issue is currently delayed?
I wouldn't have any information to support either side of that question.
I was just.
I don't know how we would even find that out.
Yeah.
And speaking to administrators though, like September is always a fluid month, right? So they're coming and going. But I know at Sacred Heart, particularly at St. Augustine, they said kids are still coming. So it's not a done deal until the end of September.
Yeah. And I recall like the budgeting in the spring, I thought was very conservative because of the unknown, right? So to be short that many students, it is quite a
Yeah.
surprise.
But suffice it to say, we will be down.
Yeah.
You know, that you will not see 149 students
Yeah.
come in. So it's a bit of a heads up, I guess is what I would say.
I think it's just a closer look again next month. If there's something that we need to do that the board needs to support. You know, making sure that we're providing Catholic education to those families that want it, and that we know why they've moved, I guess. any other questions or comments? So obviously this will be on the October agenda as updated, right? Okay, 7.6. So,
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
oh, sorry.
7.5.
7.5. Sorry. I do this every time. As we get to the end, I start skipping things. Sorry, my apologies. 7.5, update on father.
Okay, so I'll kind of just provide some brief comments and then Ed, I invite you to jump in, but I guess what I would say first off is that there have been some shortages and delays in getting steel at Father. We know that, I'll just remind you, we're in phase 1. We know that that has impacted phase 1 and moving into phase 2. We're behind right now about 5 weeks. The project, as we're being told, they're thinking they can make it up and still get to the end. And a June 30th turnover, or June, I can't remember the exact date in June, is it 30th?
June 30th.
June 30th handover. However, we're working with our Director of Facilities, Chris Mannion, as well as our consultants to kind of ask the questions we need to ask at the site meetings. Just to kind of get updates on that. But the steel has been a problem and getting the materials that we need to progress on schedule. There may be some other delays with labor, but I can't speak to that. It's maybe anecdotal. We're not 100% sure on that, but steel is the big factor. So we're hoping that it can be made up throughout the project, but right now I'm just maybe a heads up that we may be delayed. Anything to add, Ed?
One of the things that, of course, phase 1 is kind of critical for the school. That's where the new gym space is available. So they are trying very hard to make sure they meet that end of October date and having that gym space available. There's been a bit of a delay also with regards to that in terms of power. And that's with Fortis. And so what they're looking at is if there is a delay, what are our options that will be able to provide occupancy for that space so that the school has an indoor space. The gymnasium won't be a finished gymnasium. Hardwood floors will not be in or anything like that. That was known from the get-go. But the school was anticipating at least they would have an indoor space during the winter months. So again, part of those delays with steel has also delayed putting in the roof structure. That's all been done. We've caught that up, but it is a little bit behind. The one thing that they are looking at is options if permanent power is not installed, what can we do for temporary power? And so that the school can utilize that space as for the end of October. So I think that's the only other kind of caution on the immediate horizon. The balance is we are being told that they'll be able to make up any shortfall or delays that in their supplies over the course of phase 2 so that it can still meet that June 30th. So at this point, they're reassuring us. We're doing some follow-up in terms of evaluating their schedule. We asked for an updated schedule on phase 2 to make sure see how the timing, what allowances for time are that were in it are starting to be eaten away or eroded.
Trustee Edna?
So with Fortis, what's the issue there? Is it because we don't have steel and they couldn't connect, or it's just?
No, with Fortis, what Fortis is saying is they had a backlog of projects.
Okay.
And so the timing of our project coming on board, just going into the queue.
Okay.
And I think that both the contractor, the architect, the consultants to the architect and Alberta Infrastructure are putting some significant pressure on them to make sure that each school is operational in a limited capacity.
Yeah, we just got a generic letter from Fortis that said because of COVID, everyone's kind of doing the projects with their money that they have that they didn't spend on other areas. So they've got more to do than the time they have, so it's delayed everything. But as Ed has said, there's lots of pressure on them that, hey, this is not a little backyard project here, this is an important big project, so.
And like we just still, I would understand why, because when before COVID hit, there was some still disputes, right, between Canada and US, and that went on for a long while. And COVID came in. The politics there hasn't changed that much yet, so definitely we ended up at a short end, not having steel. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Charlie or Ed on the update? Okay, now some. Okay, so we kept this on the agenda. September 30th remained as an in-school day. But for the benefit of the public, we just wanted it to be on our agenda and just explain how that happened and the rationale around it. So this date came out as a holiday towards the end of June, and our calendars are already approved by the end of June. Then we waited through the summer for direction from Alberta Ed on the date, but we did not get any until we were told it's up to each individual school division to decide how to handle it. So the first, I asked trustees if there was any discussion or if we needed a special board meeting to go forward and talk about this. There was no, there wasn't anybody that wanted a special board meeting. So what we did is we agreed in our discussions, we agreed that Orange Shirt Day was important to us, and we wanted to continue to recognize that day for what it was, a cultural awareness day, and the opportunity for students to be in school and learning about that day. We did hear from some people in communities that they were disappointed about this, but it's not that there was no intention to disregard truth and reconciliation. It's top of mind was that we kept with the theme that we had, the Orange Shirt Day. Other things that we're doing, some of us have attended Truth and Reconciliation when it was in Edmonton, so we are committed to that. We do have a First Nations trustee position that we are committed to providing, and hopefully there will be an appointment to that position this year. We do have a commitment or a support to the Sacred Heart First Nations Church in Edmonton that we are very supportive of. Right now, our schools have really taken up that social justice project, with a lot of intention and supporting that community. So there's lots that we are doing, and there is a lot of intention on September 30th to recognize Truth and Reconciliation. So it wasn't, there was no intention to make that less of a day, I guess is what I'm saying, by not recognizing on the calendar. The one thing about being a small division, we do have 4 sister boards that we do coordinate busing with, and yes, it is difficult to make changes in regards to busing. We do have 2 sister boards who are recognizing that day, so we will have to make accommodation for busing for those for those 2 divisions, wards. So anyhow, I'm just bringing it to the attention, in our public board meeting, that it was we were very concerned about not being able to use Orange Shirt Day in the way that it was meant to be recognized. So are there any comments or? So I just wanted to put that out there in our public meeting, and anybody that wants to talk to their local trustee about it is welcome to. And I did bring it to one of our council meetings last night, and it was well received. So, Trustee Tugward.
I could say that we certainly honor the September 30th day, and we certainly honor the Truth and Recognition. And
So it would, as in the letter that went out to parents and to staff, it will be relooked at for next year, how we handle that day. Okay, 7.7. So we're going to start with our COVID discussions. So we did receive some information this morning on the current situation in our communities. We've all received emails in the last while for and against. We had one person put forward a public forum form this morning. So I'm just opening up the discussion on how to move forward with the COVID situation in our communities and how we're feeling about making any changes or recommendations. Anybody want to start the conversation? So just for the public as well, I'll just mention that our board did take the position to follow the chief medical officer guidelines. And we have relied on that up until this point. And of course, there is a lot of concern with the numbers, the positivity rate in communities, and the lack of direction from the government on how to move forward. It is a very difficult decision for school boards to take this on. We are not the experts in the health and science of COVID. And it's causing a lot of anxiety for parents, for families, for staff. You know, everybody's concerned about everyone's well-being and health. So I'll just open up the discussion. Go ahead. Trustee Tucker? Yes, go ahead.
So I know in the past we have followed the chief medical examiner and the direction from the province. I have a great deal of concern when I'm looking at the case rates right now, especially the active case rates per 100. It just, we're way above Calgary and Edmonton, who are both implementing a vaccine program and also enhanced measures. And when I'm looking at hospitalizations for children, they're talking about age 5 to 9, 12 total ICU. To me, that's 12 too many. I'm very grateful there have been no deaths, but I have a great deal of concern for our students and for their families and for the staff. So I'm thinking that I would like to see masking in the schools and also some other enhanced measures.
So, okay, Trustee Sirwa, do you have a comment about, I guess our discussion is about whether we want to go forward with making a recommendation for enhanced measures. So that would be changing our position. Right now, our position is follow the chief medical officer. And as I said, we did receive information this morning about the situation in each of our communities regarding COVID numbers and rates of infection to help us with our discussion, and as well options for enhancement. So there's varying options that we can look at. Trustee Sir?
I think that with the number of emails coming in from parents, you know, indicating their feelings and how unhappy they are and how we need to enhance measures. I think that even though not everybody will be happy, whatever way we choose, there'll still be unhappy people because some want masks and some don't. But I think now that I don't see us having much of a choice but to enhance the measures.
So the other thing is that we know that government is meeting right now, so there could be something that happens like that. As I mentioned at the Alberta School Board Association chairs and board meeting yesterday, there definitely is a preference that Alberta Health Services and Chief Medical Officer take more of this decision-making back. So I guess, does anybody want to look at a balanced approach? You know, we know that we have some that are very for and some that are very against. And Trustee Spinach?
Yeah, so I'm just going to add my comments. I mean, it is a very tricky situation, as a lot of the trustees had mentioned. We're not given a lot of direction from Dr. Dean Hinshaw or the government, so they've given us a lot of latitude to kind of tread water or, you know, forge your own path. So after listening to the reports this morning that Charlie had collected from the other schools, and as Trustee Serwa had said, we're not going to please all the parents. That's not possible. But in terms of looking at a balance, after listening to Red Deer's response, they have kind of incorporated both, where they didn't require the masks in the classrooms, but they did require them in the common areas, and they did require them when visitors come in or when there are spectator events. Spectators would wear them, coaches would wear them. And I think they may have found an appropriate balance with how to move forward. So those are my thoughts after hearing those reports.
Trustee Armand?
Sure. This has been a decision that we have to make. At first, we aren't the experts on medical issues. When government did relinquish this decision making to us, if you look at it from the global perspective of our schools, which are part of the community in the larger scale, why would they exclude our schools from these measures if we are in a pandemic situation? And to that effect, we have to make a decision. And then right back to government. Medical issues isn't, we are in the education business, and guidance is within us to formulate policies and support our local decision making as per the decision that needed to enhance education and teach students, not health decisions. And I'm reading here to say in the local context, if we look at our local context, we have some areas that have very high concerning positivity rates, and then some areas have. But here we are, if we're going to go community by community, we are not going to be doing well with our decision making, which needs as a jurisdiction, as a division, then we have to do that in wholesome to support, because we wouldn't be back here, we'll be back here every week now and then making decisions as changes are being made, right? As well. My advice to the rest of the body, we just have to fall back in line with the guidance that the province have provided. Until they've changed that, we'll always be following the chief medical officer, because this is part of the decision making that she's relinquished to us, and she's already made for the rest of the public. And that makes sense for us to come in line and then move forward as this situation changes. Because this, as is right now, we never know. And this rate as is, every research and this thing that is being shown, now that it's now going into the younger generation or younger children, which is the target demographic that we are in the business with. So I would recommend that we come back and follow the line as advised on September 3rd by the province, because our schools are part of the community. So why are we being islanded out of this decision making? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I also do have an email from Notre Dame School Council. So they are in support of continuing with the guidance of Alberta Health Services and the Chief Medical Officer, as we have been doing. So that is that school community. So we do have, I mean, I guess an option would be, you know, government is meeting. there could be something that comes out of that. If nothing comes out of that and we're not satisfied, a special meeting will be called to consider another decision. We also have, I did send an email out to our MLAs for government to take back this decision making. We could craft a letter to the appropriate ministries, Minister of Education and the Minister of Health, and CSAR and MLAs, just like reaffirming again that this is just not our expertise, and it's just causing a lot of divisiveness in communities and so forth. So any other comments, any other discussions? How to go forward?
You're saying you could wait. However, I feel that we need to make a decision today. And if the government comes out and says, okay, yes, we're going to mandate masking, then we're fine. We haven't done that. But if they don't, then we got to come back. Why not just do it now? I just feel strongly that when I'm looking at these numbers, especially in our division, Drayton Valley, Cone, I just feel that we need to have that. And I know that we're not the experts in health, but it has been put in our laps. We have to care for their care and well-being of their children in the schools, and that's what I feel I would be doing if I said yes, we need to enhance measures. These are my thoughts.
Yes, if we look at Edmonton, Calgary, Black Gold, all these other divisions that are masking, and then people are looking at us and saying, why not? Why aren't you?
Well, we have to be able to defend our position, right? So up to now, we've been saying we've taken the position to pull up the chief medical officer, and we've received guidance when we get to the 10% threshold. We do get the guidance from Alberta Health Services on what to do next, and they still don't even recommend masking. Or sorry, it's recommended, but it's not highly recommended, or it's not mandated. So it's kind of interesting that that just isn't even coming into play. So, Trustee.
So, Madam Chair, we have 2 schools right now with outbreak. The chief medical officer have come out to tell everybody, right, that this was the recommendation on the table. Everybody will be masked, except schools who became an island, which I do not agree with, right? And that was true back on Ireland. So as we speak, we are not deviating from the chief medical officer. We are coming back in line with the guidance she's giving the entire province. We are coming back in line because, yes, that decision making was put on our lap, because as the governance of schools, that should become our decision. And I believe we asked for that when all this have started as well, and that was pushed back onto us. So now that we are going back, like you've seen some letters and some discussions to go back and say, hey, these decisions have become a little bit dicey because we do not have all the medical data as she has from other jurisdictions that is being monitored to support some of these decision making. So we are coming in line. Yes, cabinet has been meeting since yesterday, going into today. A decision will be made. When we don't know, but we know once everything is settled within that realm, they will make a decision. In that decision making, do we wait any more days? I don't believe so. I think we need to come up with a decision today to enhance our measures, including vaccine, and then until otherwise. Right? Because we are here to support and protect the children in our care, including teachers. Yes, we will not agree, but we have to make a decision to support that. And in that, how do we justify it? Justification is in the rest of all the data that is flowing. There are variants of data that is flowing. And the chief medical officer are giving the guidance to the province. So we are coming in line with the guidance that she's giving us. That's it. We are not deviating, making anything more than what is being indoor gathering. This is what she said.
So do we want to pull up the guidance that the other school divisions, our sister school divisions have like we all have it, right? We all have this. COVID. I'll just give trustee a few minutes to review again, the information that we had this morning about what enhanced measures or no enhanced measures are words around this. Does anybody have anything to discuss from reviewing the board's roster today? Go ahead, trustee Shetty.
Just reviewing them all, there's quite a variance, and I know some are K to 12 and some are 4 to 12.
Yeah.
Most are saying in all common areas. They do talk about the classrooms when they're seated, they can take their mask off. To say where physical distance is not possible, most of our classrooms that would not be possible. Again, at 29 children and have them spaced this far apart. So I do see some common things going through the school divisions that have decided on masking and enhanced measures. And I like what Dan was saying about a little bit of in the common areas. So when they're all together in the hallways, then they should be masked. Once they're seated in a classroom, then the mask can come on. And if they have to get up and walk around, just the same as us here. When we have to get up, get coffee, we put our mask on. So I like those ideas, and also the hand sanitizer. We do a lot already. It's not like we're not doing anything, right? There's hand sanitizer. We make sure the symptoms, parents are given checklists. So all those things are still very important.
Trustee Stewart?
Yes, I like the idea that when they're in the classroom, see that they can take their masks off. And I like the idea that they can still go to the gym, get their physical exercise, and still mix it at recesses.
Trustee Spinach, any others comments?
No, not at this time.
Chair, I think we should look at it from the kindergarten up, pre-kinder. I worried for that psychologically. Kinder to grade 12 will be, and as well, we should look at how our guidance in the schools will be looking at if we may look at pausing some of those as well. That will be an idea until we go further from government in the near future. And then we need to send a letter back to the minister and Ministry of Health to take the decision making back.
Okay, so we've confirmed that. A letter to Minister of Health, Minister of Education to take back this decision making. Decision making and costs
And costs.
of any enhancements. Okay, so that is straightforward. So if you recall, last year we tried to mandate masks from K to 12. It did not go very well. So I'm just reminding everybody how that went, because the chief medical officer remained, her recommendation or her mandating was 4 to 12. So how do you? So I guess we need to make, the rationale has to be there. It's got to be out there on why we're making these decisions and why we're going above the chief medical officer. So, and there's no motion yet. So, Trustee Epon?
Madam Chair, I don't think we are making a decision about the medical chief officer. So if I may remind us all, when this pandemic started, I don't think the World Health Organization even know how to handle this, right? It started in the older age demographics, 70 and above. That was when it started. When vaccines first came on the scene, 65 and under didn't even care for vaccines. And here we are. 20 months into this, and now we're seeing kids in that demographic are the ones that are most vulnerable at this time. So the justification to say we must mandate that and it didn't go well with kindergarten and other. Now we know this is the demographic that are more at risk because they have no vaccines, they have no protection. So to me, that's the justification right there. They have no, and these are some of the most vulnerable that are going around into their grandparents' care and all of that for child care and support and based on all other family dynamics. Right? I have a grandparent sent me an email to say she is worried because her household is full with all of her grandkids here. And why would we go down that path trying to mask them in the school? Right? So some of all of this, we're looking at it in a bigger context. There's ongoing research. Research is still ongoing about this COVID, as we all do know. I met a family yesterday who said they were so happy last fall, nobody got flu in their house because the mask did brought them some protection. Right, the mask did brought. So all of this research is out there, but this decision making is to support what we are doing to make sure the kids in our care are being, yes, the parents are the ultimate decision makers, which some have written to us, they are going to be taking their kids out of our schools. Right? Is that dreadful? Yes, for sure. Do we have all the answers to this pandemic? I don't. Thank you.
Trustee Tucker?
I was gonna also say when we changed that to grade 4 to 12, at that time we were not looking at the variations. And we were not looking at many of the children having this and having it very seriously. But now when we look at this, when, you know, there's been 25 children in ICU from 10 to 19, 12 from 5 to 9. And yes, this variation is certainly within our community. That does change it from, in my mind, and also the numbers are much higher than they were back when we decided that grade 4 to 12. And because the chief medical officer has mandated masking in the community, that shows us that this must be a good thing to do. That it does prevent spread. So that's why, yeah, I would definitely be in favor of it.
So I'll just read, this again is the letter from the chief medical officer from August. There has been much discussion about masks, and the use of face masks in indoor settings is one intervention that can decrease the risk of transmission of all respiratory illnesses. On the other hand, it can interfere with communication and interpersonal interactions. And last year was not mandated provincially in kindergarten through grade 3 for that reason. While masks are no longer required across the province, it is an expectation that schools will continue to support those students and those students and staff who choose to. So again, it's leaving the option to the parents and to the staff, which I think from K to 3 is very important. You know, I don't believe in taking decision-making away from parents and going above what was mandated last year. So we're going to take a 10-minute recess. And we'll be back at 1:45. I think everybody just needs a little break to think things through again. And then we'll finish up